Welcome to this special show where we are asking the banker. That's right, never before have India's bankers been under the scanner in the manner they have since the Prime Minister announced demonetization on November 8th. And the country's largest public sector bank chairperson, Arundhati Bhattacharya, is joining me to answer your questions, the questions of the viewers of this country. You can join me by simply putting a hashtag AskSBIChief on Facebook or Twitter, and we will be taking your questions from across the country directly to the SBI chief who joins me from Mumbai. Appreciate your joining us, Mrs. Bhattacharya. Pleasure talking to you. Let me ask you the first big question, and it comes from what stemmed today. The Reserve Bank of India today decided that they would reverse the rule by which earlier, only 2 days ago, we were told that if you deposited old notes of 5,000 rupees or more, you would be having to answer questions. That question clause has been removed. Do you concede this is another example of the confusion in the country's apex banking structure?
Well, first and foremost, you must understand that this is not an exercise for which there is a roadmap. Obviously, therefore, you have to make up some of the rules as you go along in order to respond to whatever is the situation that is emerging ahead of you. And therefore, there will be some changes. And I think we have to take those changes in our stride. At the end of the day, I think what is being aimed for is to have an exercise that is clean and equitable. And therefore, if there are some issues, which come up and then again, they are rolled back because they are too onerous, I think we need to take them in our stride.
You're saying take them in your stride, ma'am, but I'm just speaking on behalf of customers of your bank and indeed of any bank in this country. 60 policy tweaks by the government, including today's latest RBI notification. Doesn't it lead to confusion and, dare I say, a loss of faith at times in the banking system, ma'am?
See, at the end of the day, it is not only the customers, even for the banking system, you must understand that whenever there is a tweak, we need to tweak our IT systems as well. Otherwise, it is not impossible to implement it uniformly across all branches. So all of us are working very hard to ensure that we are doing things as per the rules that are laid down. Again, as I said, you need to understand where these things are coming from. For instance, when the government implemented the inking of the fingers, there was a lot of pushback. But it's a fact that once the inking started, the lines that were appearing to be endless, they overnight evaporated. So obviously that system was being misused. And that is the reason the government had to bring this in. So I don't think anybody is doing this without thought. I don't think anybody is bringing about these things frivolously. A need is felt and that is responded to, but then it found that it is actually hampering the customers who are genuine. Then if required, it is rolled back. So as I said, none of this is happening in a frivolous manner. We need to understand that there is no given roadmap. We need to respond to situations as they emerge, after taking into consideration that the public is not unnecessarily put to any difficulties. And if it is put to certain difficulties, well, like this particular last instruction, it has got rolled back.
Okay, you seem to be suggesting almost as if decisions are being taken on the fly because there is no clear roadmap. But and you're saying the public should not be inconvenienced. I just for a moment want you to listen to what someone who went to a State Bank of India branch yesterday said. Uday Kumar from Chennai, ma'am, is joining me. Listen to his question because it concerns ATMs, particularly State Bank of India ATMs. Do listen to what Uday Kumar in Chennai has to say.
SBI claims to say that they are the big giant as far as India is concerned, and you have n number of branches and n number of ATMs in the country. But then still, if you look at it as a normal person, the standards of ATMs are pathetic, and especially in these times when you have such a large network and none of the ATMs are functioning properly. I don't know what you're going to do about it now, especially in these times.
The problem of the ATMs, ma'am, we've just discussed the policy changes and you said you don't want to inconvenience the customers, which is why this 5,000 rupee roll and the question clause has been rolled back. But ATMs, what is being done, ma'am, to ensure that whenever I go to an ATM, the ATM has cash? There are still State Bank of India ATMs, ma'am, where people are going and not getting cash, either no cash at all or certainly not cash of the denomination they want. Most of the ATMs only have 2,000 rupee notes.
The fact of the matter is like this, that if we don't have the currency, we can't put it in. We are trying to do our level best. Just yesterday I was in T3, that is the terminal in New Delhi, for getting a flight back from Delhi to Mumbai. And at T3, a number of people came up and thanked me for the fact that though there were several ATMs of several banks in T3, ours was the only one that was operating round the clock. In fact, if you go look at the records, you will find in the first 2 days, the particular ATM in T3 was filled up 18 times because at that point of time, only 100 rupee notes were available. So 18 times in 24 hours it was filled up because it was getting emptied that quickly. Now the fact remains that if I have 2,000 rupee notes, that's all I can put it in. I can't create notes that are not with me. Now if you say that why are the notes not there, again we are aware that there is a limited printing capacity of notes in the country. Now with that, what was first determined by the regulator and by the central bank was that it is essential to first restore the value. The rupee 2000 note actually represents value. It is a store of value. So they wanted to restore the value in the hands of the people to maintain the confidence of the people. On the other hand, the 500 rupee note, that is actually more an instrument of exchange. So that has come subsequently. You are aware that from the 15th of December, all 4 presses are now only printing 500 because they want to now ensure that the exchange happens in a better manner and that only 2000s which is having a problem of exchange, that problem gets taken care of. If you consider the fact that there is a limited capacity to do the printing, you must understand the logic for which first 2000 rupee notes were printed and now 500 is getting printed. I am nowhere saying that this exercise has not caused inconvenience. It has caused a lot of inconvenience to a lot of people. It has caused a lot of hardship. But there is a logic for doing this and we have to believe that the government has got this logic right. And therefore, you know, whatever is the inconvenience, we still need to ensure that we as a nation, that we live up to whatever are the requirements and we do it to the best of our ability.
But Ms. Bhattacharya, let me press you once more on the ATM. Can you give us a figure of how many ATMs today, even as we are speaking of State Bank of India, are facing a cash crunch? Do you have a number? Can you tell me with some assurance that across India you have the largest network of ATMs in this country, that all of them have cash today?
See, it's like this. Most of our ATMs have cash, but immediately right now how many are operating I won't be able to tell you. However, this much I can confirm, we had 55,000 machines, of which 7,000 are recyclers. These recyclers were merely now working as cash deposit machines. They were not working as ATMs. So if you take out 7,000, we have about 48,000. Of the 48,000, on a regular basis, anything between 35 to 43,000 are operational at any given point of time.
Let me take a question which has come to you interestingly on Twitter. Prabhakar N, who is also a State Bank of India customer, says, after the government announced a withdrawal of 24,000 in a week, still today many of us don't get money. Banks are giving 2,000 per day. I've seen that, ma'am, on the road also when I've been traveling. Many banks, particularly if the customer is not high profile, aren't getting their full 24,000 that they are due. They get much smaller amounts. How long is this cash crunch going to last, ma'am? 30th of December is approaching. Is this cash crunch going to last beyond the 30th of December where banks cannot even give the 24,000?
See, it is like this. I don't think whether it is a high profile or a low profile customer, everybody is getting the same. It depends upon the branch, what is the cash that the branch has. The branch makes an estimation that they are able to service, say, 600 customers per day. So if they have only, 12,000, then obviously they will not give more than 2,000 per customer. Okay? So it depends.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to intervene.
How many
Ma'am, I'm sorry to intervene for a moment.
Are to be serviced.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to intervene. I have seen VIPs getting in where the Aam Aadmi stands in the queue. So let's not say that that the high profile or high net worth individuals are not getting the amount that they require. It's the lower end of people who are really suffering, ma'am.
No, I don't think, again, I do not believe that that is the case. I have known many high profile people also to stand in the queues. In fact, we ourselves have directed some high profile people to go stand in the queue and deposit their money, whereas they never used to do that earlier. But it is important for them to be there when they deposit the money, so we have directed them to go and deposit their money accordingly. And the fact of the matter is, as I said, we give less only when there is less cash in that particular branch. At all points of time, the endeavor is to give that 24,000 whenever people come for it. See, you again have to understand that people had a certain amount that they had in their custody. Okay. Now that whatever was there in that custody was the base amount. Now that base amount has suddenly become zero. As a result, everybody wants to restore whatever was that base amount before they even start on the spending bit. And therefore the demand has been huge. Now if the demand is humongous, and it is expected, after all, 84-85% of your actual legal tender has suddenly been taken out of the system, then this scarcity syndrome also occurs. Now with the scarcity syndrome, what happens is that even those who have got the notes, they are either not spending it because they find it difficult to exchange a 2,000 rupee note, or in the case of a 100 rupee note, and believe me, we have given out a lot of 100 rupees, there is a tendency to hoard it just in case you are caught short when you need small change. So either way, a mentality of scarcity is operating, because of which we are not seeing the same amount of liquidity in the markets. We expect that with the 500 as it comes in, this will be broken and people will be more comfortable in spending. When that happens, you will automatically find that the money is rotating in the economy, and this scarcity stuff will definitely come down. You asked me whether you believe that will happen within December 30th. Very difficult to say at this point of time. But I believe anything like this will take some period of time to disappear totally. It's not something that can happen overnight, because there is again no magic potion that will enable us to replace all of it overnight. But I do believe that as the liquidity comes back into the system with the 500 notes, situation will surely improve.
The 500 rupee note you keep emphasizing is critical, but Yashi Jain of Kolkata again wants to still press you, ma'am, listening to what he or she has to say at the moment. Yes, Yashi.
Practically, by when can we expect the older notes to be converted into the new ones?
That's precisely it, ma'am. You on this program are telling me that you hope that the situation will get better, but you can't give me a guaranteed date by when it will be. So the 30th of December is clearly no longer the outer limit.
See, frankly speaking, you should not be asking me this question. You should be asking RBI the question. I am merely administering what is being given to me. Whatever is coming to us, we are making sure that we put it out so that the public gets it. But what will be the amount that will come in by exactly that date, and whether that will be enough to actually satiate the requirements of the public, very difficult to say at this point of time. As I told you, that already around 8 lakh crores, not 8,000, 8 lakh crores of money has already been replaced. What was taken out from the system is around 15 lakh crores. So more than half has already gone back to the system. How much more will go back, will be needed to be given back before some kind of normalcy persists? That is anybody's guess at this point of time. So it's difficult for me to exactly give you a date. And I think the people who are actually overseeing the whole thing, they will be in a better position. From my experience only, I can tell you that I believe these things can only get back to normal over a period of time. Just as we did this in one fell swoop, it doesn't mean it can be also, you know, what should I say, the remonetization also can be done at that same speed. It has to happen over a period of time, because it is a question of getting the money out to various stakeholders, and they are many in number. So the infrastructure also has to hold up in order to get those notes out to them. And that is going to take time.
I think you're being very honest and candid there when you say that. Alisha from Kolkata, ma'am, has a question for you. Listen in.
If you're taking the higher value currency of rupees 1000 from the circulation, but implementing a higher value of rupees 2000, and it is coming to circulation, then how is the higher value supposed to curb demonetization, when in the long run it will be much easier for people to, you know, keep their money stacked with the higher value notes?
Ma'am, we've seen hoarding of 2000 rupee notes as well taking place. In the raids, a number of raids have taken place where 2000 rupee notes have been found in large quantities. Does that worry you? Is that now, has pink become the new black, as some are suggesting?
Actually, you know, we need to take many steps to ensure that the practices that were prevalent before demonetization aren't resumed once the cash is available in the economy in sufficient quantities. And that is one of the reasons why, you know, whoever has put money back in must be looked at to see where this money has come from, how this is going to be used in the future. In respect of businesses that were cash oriented, obviously, you know, there has to be incentives as well as disincentives to ensure that they now come within the formal system. The idea behind this demonetization, I think, are twofold. One, of course, is to make it a less cash society, so that whatever needs to be in the revenue net actually comes into the net. It is really strange that a country of 1.3 billion people has only 4% direct taxpayers. I cannot believe that none of the others beyond that 4% are actually eligible to pay taxes. So obviously there is a lot of a transaction that is happening in cash that is not getting captured. And if we are looking at the sustainable development of this country, then the rightful revenues of the government must be realized. The second thing is that when we are talking financial inclusion, financial inclusion is not merely opening of accounts. Financial inclusion happens when you are part of the formal financial system. And if you are part of the formal financial system, you should not only be able to save your money, you should also be able to take loans, you should also be able to make investments. But if your business transactions are not happening on the formal channel, giving you loans becomes a very major difficulty. And invariably such people will take loans from the informal system at much higher rates of interest. Now what this does is, it does not leave enough margin for the entrepreneur to scale up. And therefore, with this digitization, what is going to happen and what we expect is, more and more transactions will be reported in the digital manner, enabling the formal financial system like banks to assess the suitability of a person for borrowing, so that we can give them loans at much cheaper rates, enabling the better of these institutions and the more efficient of them to actually scale and become bigger. So this is also going to act in favor of financial inclusion.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you're saying this, because you've recently spoken about a levy on cash transactions to incentivize digital payments. It was something that former Finance Minister Mr. Chidambaram did in 2005 last.
That's right.
Do you believe that the NDA should adopt a similar strategy, that you will charge me a levy, put a levy on a cash transaction to incentivize digital payments?
See, for the bigger value transactions, certainly. I don't really see why large value transactions should happen on anything other than the digital or electronic channels. The small value I can understand. For the small value, sometimes it is difficult because they may not have connectivity. It may be in some portion of the country where there are difficulties in communication. So small values can be understood, and everywhere in every country, much of the small value actually still gets done on through the cash channel. Though some countries in Kenya, for instance, some countries in Africa, and one of them is Kenya, actually has shown us the way as to how the really small transactions can also be on a non-cash mode. But be that as it may, there is absolutely no reason why large value transactions need to be done in cash, and that the government definitely should look to disincentivize.
Madhav from Chennai, since we are talking about less cash, the word you use, the government uses the word cashless, but Madhav from Chennai has an interesting question in that regard for you, ma'am.
How can these vendors, these merchants, small merchants and the unorganized population will be included into cashless economy?
You know, this whole word less cash, cashless, ma'am, your bank reaches out perhaps to more corners of this country than any other bank. But will the small vendor actually enter the formal banking sector? I mean, are we living in an utopian world when we talk of this less cash or a cashless in particular economy?
No, I don't think we are living in an utopian world. Just today, for instance, I had gone to our IT center, and there is a very large colony of our people who live close to our IT center. That entire colony of around 800 houses has become totally digital. So the newspaper vendor, the maid who comes to service the houses, the dhobi who comes to do the pressing of the ironing of the clothes, everybody has been given a wallet. All of them are transacting on the wallet.
Yes,
in fact, now we have taken this up to ensure that we take up villages and start converting them. Day before yesterday, I was in Valsad, and there we have taken up the job, and we have made a commitment in writing that we are going to take villages and make them digital. Actually speaking, if the communication bandwidth is available, making them digital is not really a difficulty. As you know, even on the feature phones today, we have come with a wallet. It's no longer only limited to smartphones. Even feature phone owners can actually transact on the digital. And let me tell you something, these people, when we give it to them, they feel so empowered and they are so enthusiastic about it that we as city dwellers, we feel ashamed at the speed at which they actually adopt these things. But again, you know, this is something that has to be done as a movement. We have to actually, you know, go after this particular digitization effort. We have to literally evangelize it. It is only then that it is going to spread out in the far reaches of the country. However, I continue to say that the backbone has to be made stronger. So whether it be the communication bandwidth and the communication network, whether it be the security features that we employ in our products as well as the convenience, all of these things need a lot of work going forward.
I'm going to take a short break, ma'am, and come back to you with more questions, because lots of people have several questions for you as the chairperson of State Bank of India. Stay with us. I'm glad that you're clarifying many of these key areas, but there are still several question marks that people have.